welcome back to the Mark Hunt Game channel. This one's going to be a little bit different, to be honest. It's not going to be some cliche version of a gaming video. I'm going to talk about my opinion, and specifically my opinion on the death of other people's opinions, because I feel like it's something I'm watching recently, and it's kind of upsetting. I feel like, well, this came around when I went to watch Supergirl, right? I went to watch Supergirl, and I thought, this is a good movie. I enjoyed it. It may not have been the most technically impressive movie ever, and yeah, there was some plot holes or whatever, but I liked it. But the issue that I have is that people won't watch that movie because it may not be the most technically impressive, and specifically, critics will give it ratings, and critics will complain. And then people will see that the critical rating is low, and they'll be like, oh, I don't even want to watch it. And that's so upsetting. That's so upsetting that you could completely miss a piece of media that you could enjoy. And the only reason that you're going to miss that piece of media is because somebody else whose opinion, might not even be legitimate. It's upsetting that you could miss that entire piece of media purely because of their opinion, Like, for example, my favorite movie is Surf's Up. Now, that's not an Oscar-rated movie. Definitely not. There's definitely issues with it. But I enjoy it. But I bet if I look at the Surf's Up like IMDb or what is it, tomato rating, it's gonna be low. It's gonna be lower than some other people's favorite movies, but I love it and it's my favorite movie. But I feel like if I ask you what your favorite movie is, and you say some incredibly well produced, incredibly technically impressive, ticks all the Oscar boxes movie, I don't know if that's as interesting as if you told me like your favorite movie ever is like the fucking 2020 My Little Pony movie. Like, sure, that's weird, but that's kind of good. Was it 2020 that the movie came out? I don't know. I'd prefer that. I'd actively prefer you to say something that I know you picked because you enjoyed it, rather than something that was technically, directorially impressive. And it happens with other stuff as well. Like, with specifically people trying to assign a value or assign a best or worst to a form of media. It happens to music as well. Like, I feel like there's so many bands out there that are good, but because they're not the best, because they're not like the most technically impressive, they will never get talked about and they'll never get seen. And it goes the other way as well. I feel like there's a push for that technical ability, and it makes some music really hard to listen to, and some movies kind of hard to watch, because you know that they're doing it purely to be technically impressive, or doing it to be like artistic, which is fair. You can make artistic movies, but it's different. Like, I feel like if I listen to Polyphia, they get a little bit tiring to listen to, and that's because they're pushing to be this technical marvel of music, or specifically the guitarist like Tim Hortons. I don't know. I doubt it's Tim Hortons, but he's pushing to be this technically impressive, incredible guitarist, and I understand that. But that's different. That's different to being incredibly enjoyable to listen to. Sorry about that. But if people do say that their favorite band is Polyphia, and I don't know if it's actually their favorite band, and I don't know if it is their favorite band, I don't know if it's because they're just technically impressive and that's the only reason. Like, there's a full chance that they don't actually like the band, but because they see all these good reviews and how impressive he is and so, they think, oh, on paper this band's good, so I'm going to pick it as my favorite. And that happens with movies, like I was talking about. But the push for criticality and the push for critiquing everything, I feel like is coming from the internet, and especially from like TikTok, where you can make a 10-second video just being like, yeah, this movie sucks, don't watch it, and it will get like 4 million views, and then at least a percentage of those will be people that would have enjoyed it, but they didn't watch it because you told them not to watch it because your opinion was different. And that sucks. That is really upsetting. Because, you know, what if you're stopping the next person who just makes feel-good movies? They don't really exist anymore. And going back to Supergirl, the big complaints that I hear is that, like, there was specific plot issues or specific plot holes that took people completely out of the movie. I don't think I've ever had that. Like, realistic. I mean, I have. But it's never completely ruined a movie for me. You can get back into it and just ignore the plot hole. Like, there's a level of... There's a word for it, I'll put it on screen. That you have suspended disbelief. That's what I'm thinking of. You can suspend your disbelief. But it feels like these critics can't. It feels like the second that there's something wrong, they can't suspend their disbelief at all. And a movie is terrible and it's rated like 2. And they hate it. I'm going to go the other way. You know Pulp Fiction, right? Pulp Fiction, people love this movie. I have tried to watch Pulp Fiction multiple times, but it's just not my cup of tea, and I don't know why. And I've had people that are like, but it's so technically impressive, it's so da-da-da, it's one of the best rated movies of all time, and that's my entire point, is that I don't care that it's the best rated, or the most technically impressive, or Guillermo del Toro licks feet, not... Is it Guillermo del Toro that I'm thinking of? I don't know. But it's just not my cup of tea. And that's fair, because then I know that I enjoy it, or I didn't enjoy it specifically. But to come back against that point by saying that it's rated highly is really depressing. Because you shouldn't have to point out the reason that you enjoyed it was that it was rated well. You should be able to be like, the reason I enjoyed it is because of, and then it will be something you enjoyed about the movie, specifically. But that's just not happening. I want to talk about, as well, specifically, I want to talk about this push for a best version of something with alt subcultures. Because it's happening to goths right now, and it's really upsetting. I feel like right now, there's a push for you to be goth in a very specific way. Like, I see a lot of, not even romantic or trad goths anymore. There's a lot of, like, e-goths who are doing it for the look, yes, but that changes people's perceptions of what a goth should be. There isn't a version of what a goth should be, agreed. Or not a strictly defined one anyway, because it's an alt subculture. But my point is more that there shouldn't be a best rated or best or most perfect look for a goth or an alt subculture to be, because that kind of completely defeats the point. But there is. It's definitely forming, and people will want to be goth but not leave the house or not dress that way because they can't achieve a version of that subculture that they've seen online, and that's completely useless. I'll put some photos on screen, but it happens with nu metal. If you look at the kids or the people that used to listen to nu metal in the 90s, they don't look perfect. Like, they're not internetable, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They're doing it for their own sake. They're dressing how they want to dress. Their subculture is their own. But they're not maybe the most photogenic version. And now that would mean that people would second guess how they dress, second guess if they deserve to be part of the subculture. But that's not how the subculture works. The subculture itself is it's alternative. So how can there possibly be a best version of it? How can there possibly be a version of alternative, a version of metal, a version of goth that is the most picturesque? There shouldn't be, but there is for these people, and it's upsetting because it goes back to the same point that there's a version that critics, whether or not they're literal paid critics, there's critics that will see how an old person dress, how a goth person dress, how a nu metal or a metalhead or so on. They'll see that it's not lining up with the best quote-unquote version of that, and then they'll simply not like it. And that's not how that works. I've seen goth people that look completely different to how I would perceive what I would expect a goth to look like. But you look at them and you're like, that's so cool. You did this, you did that. It's so different. Like gothabillies, they're cool as hell, but you never see them. And I feel like the reason that you don't see them is definitely partly because it's not as accepted. And I know the point of alt is to, like, you know, I don't care if I'm accepted, but it's less represented, and that's upsetting. That a part of your subculture has to be represented for it to be a valid one, and that validity is a big issue. I feel like validity within anything, any circle, should be based on your own opinion, and not like the opinion of someone being critical or the opinion of a literal paid critic on whether or not something is valid, because that's upsetting. Recently, Obsession and Backrooms came out, and they got incredible ratings and incredible scores from both critics and the crowd, and that's how I would know that it's a good movie, right? I would argue that I would trust the crowd rating more than the critic rating on almost anything. Genuinely on almost anything. Because critics also critique and are more interested in the negatives than whether or not they just generally enjoy something. Critiquing, is definitely sort of being pushed towards just constantly being negative and actively looking for issues. And that's why I wouldn't trust a critic score on a movie, but people do. And it may be issues that you never even notice. Specifically in Supergirl, I won't give spoilers, but there is a scene that has a glaring issue on how a character didn't die. But I didn't notice that until after I left the cinema and looked at a critical review, and the critic was like, this is unwatchable because of this. That's my point, is that I didn't notice it, I enjoyed it. But these critiques are paid to look for negatives. So if you ever trust specifically critical reviews, you'll only ever watch things that are technically perfect. And things that are technically perfect have no grunge, there's no love, there's no sort of dirt under the skin of these movies. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no... I don't know. There's no uniqueness. Everything gets bland if it's perfect. It's the same sort of... Is it The Incredibles, where he says, if everyone's super, then no one will be? It's the same sort of point that I have with perfect movies. If every movie was perfect, none of them would be. But also, if every movie was made to be generally interesting, then that'll be boring. But people only watch the generally interesting, massive, critically acclaimed 14 different directors, all of them get paid £15 billion a year. You know, like, and it leaves these small projects, it leaves them just high and dry, purely because people won't watch them unless there's a massive name attached. And that's why celebrity actors get hired so much too. It's because people will think, oh, he's a good, technically, or literally, he's a good actor. So they'll go and see it. But apart from, like, I mean, Brad Pitt's got pretty good range. Matthew McConaughey has got incredible range. But specifically, like, Jason Momoa, The Rock, Jared Leto, like, I feel like I've never seen them really be different, be dirty, be grungy, be gritty, in a way that matters enough for it to change a movie. They always play the safe side, where yes, it's technically good, they're a good actor, but it's not interesting, and I don't like it, and that's a big difference. But there are people out there that will only ever watch these movies if they have so-and-so actor doing so-and-so thing, because they know they already like it. And they know that critics will get a good review, and critics will give a good review of any Marvel movie. Or they'll do the opposite and give a terrible, terrible review. for no reason. And it sucks. Anyway, that's just me rambling. I'll edit this, I'll send it out. I hope someone watches it. Goodbye.